You've definitely seen this flower before, probably 100 times, in bouquets, at weddings, maybe even pinned to a lapel. It's the common carnation. But behind those familiar petals, there's an incredible story that stretches back millennia, connecting everything from divine myths and political revolutions to some really cutting-edge genetic engineering. So let's get into the hidden life of the carnation.
And there it is, the carnation. It's that reliable splash of color, right? A total floral staple. I mean, for over 2,000 years, humans have been cultivating this flower. And because of that long history, it's really woven itself into the fabric of our culture. You might think it looks ordinary, but its story? Well, it's anything but. So, what if I told you that this simple-looking flower has been a symbol for the gods, a badge for revolutionaries, a secret code between lovers, and even the subject of a scientific quest to create the impossible? It's time to peel back the petals.
Okay, so where does this whole extraordinary story even begin? Well, it starts with his formal name, Dianthus caryophyllus. Now, I know, that sounds like some stuffy Latin term for botanists, but it's actually the very first clue in a mystery that's over 2,000 years old, and it takes us right back to ancient Greece.
You know, a name is never just a name, right? Especially one that's been around for 2 millennia. By digging into both its scientific and its common names, we can open up this fascinating window into how ancient cultures saw this flower, not just as a plant, but as something, well, something divine.
So let's start with Dianthus. The Greek botanist Theophrastus came up with it by smashing 2 words together. Dios, which means divine, or, of the god Zeus, and anthos for flower. So right from the get-go, from its very scientific beginning, this wasn't just any old plant. It was literally called the divine flower, or the flower of the gods.
And what about the common name, carnation? Well, that's a bit of a mystery, but there are 2 really great theories. One is that it comes from the Latin word corona, because these flowers were woven into ceremonial crowns and garlands back in Greece and Rome. The other theory points to caro, the Latin word for flesh, which refers to the flower's original, natural pale pink kind of flesh-like color. So crown or flesh. Either way, both tell a story.
So, the big takeaway here is that this flower has always been just packed with meaning. And over time, that meaning got even more specific. It developed into this really complex language based on something super simple, its color.
And this is just a quick snapshot of that secret language. A light red one meant admiration, but dark red was for deep love. White was all about pure love and good luck. A striped carnation? That carried a message of regret. Purple meant you were being capricious, and probably most famously, a green carnation, worn by Oscar Wilde, became the subtle symbol of homosexuality in the early 20th century.
I love this contrast because it just perfectly shows the flower's amazing double life. On the one hand, you see it here as this huge symbol of social change in a mural from Portugal's Carnation Revolution. But on the other, it's also that simple, intimate bouquet you use to express your personal feelings. It just thrives in both worlds, public protest and private affection.
And all this symbolism builds into something even bigger. The carnation didn't just represent abstract ideas. It actually became an active participant in history, a banner for social movements, and a centerpiece of traditions all around the globe.
I mean, just look at this incredible range. For socialists and labor movements, the red carnation is a symbol of solidarity. In Portugal, it literally gave its name to a peaceful revolution when soldiers famously put them in the muzzles of their guns. In Azerbaijan, it represents tragic loss and national remembrance. And in Ohio, it's a political tribute to an assassinated president, William McKinley, who always wore one for good luck. Seriously, from revolution to remembrance, this flower has seen it all.
And of course, maybe its most widespread tradition is Mother's Day. That all started back in 1907 with a woman named Anna Jarvis. She chose her mother's favorite flower, the white carnation, to symbolize the purity of a mother's love. The tradition has changed a bit since then. Now, a red one is often worn to honor a living mother, and a white one is worn to remember one who has passed on.
So, we've gone from ancient history to modern traditions, and the carnation story has really been one of culture. But its final chapter, for now anyway, is one of pure science, a quest to create a color that nature basically said was impossible. And this is a hard fact of botany. Despite the thousands of different colors and varieties we've created through breeding over the centuries, a naturally blue carnation has never, ever existed. It just doesn't have the genetic tools to make that color. So why no blue?
Well, the science is pretty clear. Carnations are missing the gene to produce a pigment called delphinidin, and that's the key ingredient for blue and violet shades. So no amount of traditional crossbreeding could ever switch that gene on because it just isn't there. And they're not alone in this. Roses and tulips have the same limitation.
Okay, so if you can't breed it, you have to build it. And that's exactly what scientists at a company called Florigene did back in the mid-90s. They performed what was basically a kind of genetic surgery, borrowing the genes that make blue pigment from other flowers, like petunias, and then inserting them directly into the carnation's DNA.
And this was the result, the moon dust carnation. It was the world's first genetically engineered bluish carnation. Now, it's not a true deep blue. It's more of a beautiful mauve violet. But it's a color that had been completely impossible for the 2,000 years we've been growing this flower, until science literally rewrote its DNA.
So, we've gone all the way from the flower of the gods in ancient Greece to a symbol of revolution to a marvel of modern genetic engineering. The humble carnation has proven to be anything but ordinary. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we continue to shape its future, what new meanings are we going to give it next?